One love to everybody out there. I felt guided to talk about um, auric fields and give you my intuitive hit, and I feel I'm being guided to say this to other people because I know it's something that I've been dealing with myself. So when dealing with your awakening, your ascension, and expansion of your auric fields and your the fine-tuning, the sensory perceptions that come up for you, the visions, I feel what happens to people, and I felt this for myself, like as your auric field expands and as you're ascending on a consciousness level, you do start to, as an empath as well, because I am speaking to empaths, I'm an empath, you do start to pick up on things in your vicinity surrounding you, and that can be for miles, because I believe your auric field expands the more, the more conscious and evolved, the more you elevate with your ascension and on your ascension path, the more you're purifying your body, the more you are exalting your mental state to from the more you're detaching, the more you are becoming less of the world and more in the world, if you know what I mean. When you tune into nature, when you are practicing your spiritual path, and purifying your body and alkalining your body and all of these things, your auric field expands, and you do pick up on things from other people constantly. And that's something that has to be managed and compartmentalized, and knowing that, this isn't mine, this is maybe theirs. You get it. For me, I get insights, visions, feelings, and it can throw me off, like, because I can be picking up on stuff and it's like, okay, this isn't actually me, this is like my neighbor, or this is like someone walking along the street down the road. Do you know what I mean? Like, and that can be really, really hard to deal with, and this is why people, find it difficult, and they numb themselves out, and they turn to all kinds of things to numb themselves out. And there's a element of that, like, we're being so overwhelmed in these current times. But some of my advice, and I'm sure many of you know this already, is to go into nature, because that is such a pure consciousness life form, and it's also healing. When you think about what we eat, a lot of us eat our vegetables, and our fruit and vegetables, and we are nature. So it's aligning with our tribe. The earth is our tribe, it's our connection. It's like, that's one way of dealing with your empathy and your insights. And obviously, if you're living in a city like I am, it's quite difficult for some people to get into nature. And this is why there's a lot of issues going on, because the more that nature is stripped away from cities, the less chance people, when they're being intuitive and empathic, and we need nature. It's part of our survival. It's a fundamental need. So anyway, that's a whole nother subject. I'm trying to just talk about auric fields. I'm going on a tangent, but basically, with your auric field, and you're picking up on energies from someone walking down the road, or it can stretch for miles and miles, and with that there's good as well. It's not all bad. Like, you're acknowledging, like, for me as well, like, I can feel, like, at Christmas, for example, people, whether you want to, whatever your beliefs are, people do seem to shift their vibration around the Christmas period, because it's kind of like they've got no work, or their work's going down a bit. They're thinking about family more. They're thinking about being with their families, or you know, people sometimes do take stock of their lives, like annually, you know, it's like, oh, what I did this year, what I'm going to do next year. Like it's a much more spiritual time for people who aren't necessarily like on the path. So like we're all on a path, but I mean, you know, when they're not consciously doing it and they're just going about their day-to-day lives. And I feel that for me as an empath, I can feel the shift in consciousness, like the spirituality does seem to come back in, because people are almost like the pressure's off slightly, more than it is for the other months of the year, you know, even in terms of like, you know, the consumerism and the, you know, business that's plaguing the planet, you know. So basically people are shifting their vibration much more, and so as an empath I can feel that happening around Christmas time, you know, and there's other times as well, you know. I do think people will tune into the full moon whether they know it or not. I think what's interesting is that people aren't necessarily consciously seeking this, but they are doing it. Do you know what I mean? It's like, and that's what's interesting, like somebody's not necessarily on that path, but you can feel as an empath, it's like, okay, but they are aligning themselves with the weather, or they're aligning themselves with, you know, moon cycles, like when it's a full moon, when it's a new moon, like you can tell their behavior shifts. And I find that interesting as an empath, because even though they're not like maybe talking about this stuff, they're doing it. Do you know what I mean? So that's another interesting thing. So yeah, like I think even with animals, for example, like as an empath, they are drawn more, that they won't run away as much. Like if you go into nature and you observe, you know, like a squirrel, for example, you know, or a bird or whatever, they're less likely to fly off or run away because they can feel your energy, you know. So it's like they're not gonna feel threatened, and they can feel what your intention is, you know. And there's just like this little telepathy that happens as well. So this is all aligned with your auric field, like this is all your auric field shifting. And another way to deal with that is just to keep constant like intentional frequencies on around you. You know, like I have wind chimes, and you know, there's always listen to the frequencies, and it kind of it helps to keep a certain clearance. Do you know what I mean? So that things don't build up, and keeps your energy clear. And I just feel that what we have to basically practice, and this is a practice because it's not something that you can just go, oh, I'm doing it necessarily. Like some people, like it's more natural than others, but some of us really have to work at it. It's like not feeling so swayed by the tide. Do you understand what I mean? It's like learning to swim as an empath. You're getting these constant waves of energy, of all different types of energy that's intentional, energy that's not even intentional. It's unintentional, but it's kind of like you're still picking up on it, and people can't help, they're just releasing to you. Like you can feel when somebody sits down and talks to you, it's kind of like when they're releasing, they kind of throw it. It's almost like they're throwing paintballs at you. Do you understand what I mean? It's like you have to just go put your wall up, of your energy wall. Not obviously you can, if you feel that you want to have that conversation, that's fine, but it's the energy wall has to come up, you know, to protect yourself, so that you don't internalize that and take that in. And that's just the process that we need to do, because many people do become detrimentally affected by the waves that they're getting as natural empaths. It's something that really isn't discussed. I think it's a cause for so many things, you know, if people were more aware of how they use their energy, and, you know, what they allowed in or didn't allow in, you know. I'm not trying to tell anyone else how to behave, but I'm just giving my perceptions and my awarenesses. So yeah, like the waves that we get, we have to really learn how to swim in these waves and in these tides, you know, because it's just learning to swim. So we have to just practice that, and that is a constant practice. Practice makes perfect. So even though there's no such thing as perfection, but yeah. So the auric field, it's like a transmitter. It's like a circle. You know, that's how I envision it, is as a circular sphere, and it can stretch for miles. So you can be picking up on someone's energy miles away. And I think you just have to allow to disconnect and focus your intention on what you're going to connect with. And if you're getting something, it's like, thank you, I release that, you know. And you will have to do affirmations and prayers and mantras, and have ways and practices that you use to protect yourself, because otherwise you can become overwhelmed. So I feel that being conscious of that is important, and as we learn to practice how to protect ourselves energetically, eventually if we keep consistent, then we can kind of become more empowered, like as an empath. So yeah, just the constant practice is important. Anyway, thank you for listening. I hope that's helped somebody out there. Just sharing my perspective. Okay, one love.